to introduce Alphonso James. I had the pleasure of hearing his incredible story a couple of weeks ago, and possibly one of the purest human beings or purest minds that I've ever come across. And I believe that he is a gift, and he's here to teach us all a life lesson, a life experience, and share his incredible journey. I think it starts off with, I mean, he'll share it with us, but starts off with, a horrific experience or decision that was made, which you've now turned into a gift and an opportunity and positivity, which, I thank you for, and thank you for sharing your story. So if you want to introduce yourself and, explain or share with everybody your story and how everything started from a teenager to where you are today.
Thank you, James. It's truly a blessing, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to have a voice. My story begins almost 40 years ago. It was July 27th, 1985. I was 17-year-old. I was like in this breakdancing thing. I had this vigor, this love for life. I had a 2-month-old daughter that I adored more than anything in this world. But I was still a kid, and I still lived with my mother, so I still had to, be responsible. And it was this particular day. I was sitting on the porch, and my mother came to the porch, and she was like, "Are you going to get the baby today?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to get him. I'm not going to get it." So my mother went in there, as she always did on weekends. She was cooking. She made my favorite, which is bacon and eggs, and I can eat that all day. So she brought it out to the porch. We were sitting on the porch, and I'm still bragging about my daughter. And then I get a call. I get a call from at that time I was a breakdancer again, and I get a call from our manager saying that we had a performance that night, which was Saturday. So I'm really on cloud nine. Now I get to breakdance in front of a big audience, and now I get to be famous. So I'm really excited.
So life's great at that point.
Yes, yes. Then all of a sudden, while sitting on the porch, there was an officer that passed our house, which it wasn't nothing strange or anything like that. It was just a typical thing. So when he came back, but he stopped the second time, and when he stopped, he removed himself from his car, and he asked my mother, "Who is that black kid that's sitting next to you?" My mother's like, "That's my son." So he's like, "Is it okay if I talk to him for a minute? There's some things that went on around in the community. We just going around canvassing." And my mother told him, she's like, "No, you can't talk to him. My son is not allowed to be on the streets or outside by the time the street light come on." And so he was like, "Well, no, don't worry about it. He's not in any trouble or anything." So eventually my mother agreed. So I went to the police car, wasn't concerned, wasn't worried, didn't have any information, nothing. It was just a morning that I just woke up just excited about seeing my daughter in breakdancing. And he said, "Do you have a warrant for you?" I said, "No, I don't have no warrant for me. No." He said, "Okay." So he checked. So he looked up to my mother, who still sat on the porch, and he told her, he said, "Well, we're just going to take him downtown for a couple minutes. He's not in any trouble or anything. Don't worry about it. You don't have to come with him." But yet I was a minor, so that still didn't register to me and my mother. We thinking, okay, this guy is on some honest stuff. And so I get in the car.
Yeah.
I didn't have any handcuffs or anything like that on. So I was able to look back out the back window. And when I looked out the back window, I saw my mother just completely collapse to the ground. And when I saw her collapse to the ground, I was like, I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't help. She couldn't help me, and I couldn't help her. So I saw my siblings running down the stairs into the streets where my mother was collapsed at and trying to comfort her. And my mother refused to be comforted. And I remember we probably the car drove a block or two down the street, then he turned off, and I wasn't able to see my mother no more. And they took me to the police department. When they took me to the police department, again, they said I wasn't in any trouble. They just going through a routine questioning. So behold, I was in the interrogation room, and they started giving me information about a murder. And I was like, "No, I don't, no, that's not me. I don't do stuff like that." And he's like, "No, well, if you didn't do it, you may know who did." I was like, "I don't know. I really don't know." And 12 hours into it, they eventually came to me and they said, "Well, your mother's in the lobby waiting on you. All you have to do is sign this paper and you will be released into her custody." I signed my name to a document. that was completely blank, other than my full name on the top of it that they had written. And when they came back an hour later, it was words that was written on it in their handwriting. There was never any audio. They never recorded any of the interview, never gave me a rights or never explained anything to me. So they said, okay, we're going to transfer you to the children's center. And they,
So
I
sorry,
said,
so
for
that was a blank statement then that they got you to
yes,
sign, and then after
yes,
you signed, they then filled it out. What did it say
yes.
after? Do you know?
They didn't read it back to me.
Okay.
At that time, they didn't read it back to me. I didn't know the fullness of it until Monday morning, when the attorney came, a public defender came, a court-appointed attorney came and spoke to me. And I shared with him everything that happened. I told him, that's not my handwriting. I can't even spell like that. And he was like, well, why would the police lie on you? I was like, I don't know. I just know I didn't do it. I can't. So he never defended me. He never investigated. He never did any of those type of things. So 4 months later, I find myself in front of a jury trial. And every time a witness or somebody came to the stand, I would look over at my lawyer and I look back at my mother. I was like, who is these people? And each one of them would get on the witness stand and said, yeah, I was the one. I was like, no, I'm not the one. I don't know y'all. I didn't understand. So they convicted me first-degree murder, sentenced me to 100 or life sentence without parole. They sent me to a maximum correctional place. I go in that place. It was like the worst thing. It was like I didn't know how I was going to get out. I didn't know. Nothing made sense to me. So I go into this place and I look around and I feel nothing but bitterness, but nothing but anger, nothing but sadness. Nothing can come from me because my mother wasn't there.
Yeah.
So they put me in this cell and I'm looking around this cell and I was like, wow, I don't deserve to be here. So I started shaking the cells and telling people I don't deserve to be here. Nobody listened. So I thought that, like when I was a kid, when I act up around my mother, when I want her attention, then she'll pay some attention to me. So I said, well, the best thing I can do is to act up and somebody's going to ask me, why are you mad? Why are you fighting? So I ended up getting 5 years in the hole in solitary confinement. They put me in that place.
For 5 years.
And yeah, it was, I relive it every day. I relive it every
So
day.
how long was you in jail before that happened then?
Uh, um, Probably 2 months.
Wow, so almost straight off the bat, and then
Yeah,
5 years in solitary.
yeah, yeah.
And so you never, apart from people coming in and giving you food and things, did you get a chance to go out and exercise or see daylight or speak to anybody?
No,
Nothing.
no. They had where they had their recreation at the time. It was indoor, and they had like a at the top of it. It was fenced off, so you can see the sky. But it wasn't every day that was guaranteed that they will allow you to go out for an hour. So you have to go days and days. So I used to just sit back in my cell and do push-ups and just keep my mind busy. I couldn't read, so I couldn't pick up a book and you know and really be in that place. So that's when I finally, like, I did a lot of running in my life, emotional running. Whenever an issue came up, I literally hate any type of conflict. I hate conflict. Whenever conflict arises, I will walk away or I would run away. I don't want to be around it. And I found myself in that dungeon, and I was like, God, I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more. And so soon after, it was a chaplain that started to visit me while I was in SEG, and every week. And I hated him. I didn't want to talk to him. Nobody was trying to listen to me. So I was like, well, the best thing I can do is to do something so disgusting that he would never come to my cell again. So I would urinate in a milk crate. I would urinate in that, and I would wait for him, and I would dash him with this urine. And this guy would stand in front of my cell after I threw urine on him, didn't have no type of reaction. The only thing, he's a stranger. He was a prison chaplain. And he said, Alphonso, I love you, and so do God. I had no idea what he was saying. I didn't really care at the time because my pain was so it it wrapped me up so much that I really couldn't hear anything that was sensible at the time. So he
And so,
kept
so
coming
much
back,
so
kept,
that
mm,
sorry, so what you're into? How far into the 5 years did he come then? Was it like pretty much straight away?
yeah, yeah,
And you've got so
yeah,
much anger that the one person that comes to try and help, you try to do something. I mean, you pee in the milk carton to throw it at him because you want to react. That's how much anger you had,
yes, yes,
which is
yes.
I think is which is fair and understandable. But then instead of him retaliating or reacting, he then says to you,
Mm. I love you, and so do God. He When he hit me with that,
"Wow,
I was like, I probably went through the same thing like three, no, 4 or 5 times with throwing urine on him, and each time he would return back to my cell and he would say the same thing. But this final time he came, this time it was unusual because he had 2 towels. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, somebody else down there is throwing urine on him too. So, but he had this chair and a towel, and the towel that he had on the back of the chair, it made no sense to me. So when I threw the urine on him, he wiped himself with the towel that he had wrapped around his neck. He threw that to the side. He went and grabbed the chair, sat in front of my cell, and began to tell me, Alfonso, I love you, and so do God. So he kept on with
wow."
this over and over and over again
And
to the
he knew
point
you was going
I
to do it
believed him.
again. He knew
Yes.
coming back to seeing you that you was just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But he saw something
Wow.
different. And when he came down and he sat on the chair, he said, Alfonso, why are you so angry? I said, Chaplain, I'm in prison for something I didn't do. Nobody would explain to me why. He said, I believe you. When he told me that, I believed him. I knew that I can trust him. So, and I told him, I said, Chaplain, I got a secret that don't nobody know, and I'm embarrassed. And I told him, I said, well, I can't read. He said, okay, we can do something about that. So the following day, which was a Saturday, because he used to come in every Friday on a Saturday. He came in on a Saturday, and he came in with coloring books, a child coloring books. And there was pictures on there, but there was words at the bottom that you pretty much had to connect it to. And so he gave me these things, and I was like, Chaplain, why would you give me a kid book? He was like, Alfonso, don't be ashamed. It's only me and you
Hmm.
that know this. So I would take these books and I would match them up and I would give it to him for him to correct it. So he would start bringing more challenging books, advanced books. And then finally, he brought the King James Bible. And I was so intimidated by the King James Bible because I didn't understand the language. But
Yeah.
when I opened this Bible up, it seemed like revelation after revelation after revelation just start pouring in. I knew I was in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. So once I realized that, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be mad no more. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be the best version of me. So I learned to read. I did all those things while I was in the 5 year solitary confinement. So when I was finally released, the first thing they did, because I was under 25 at the time, so you have to get your education while you're in Wisconsin prison. So they enrolled me in the class, and I scored so high on my test they thought I cheated. So they called me to the side and said, "Well, how did you go from a third grade reading to all of a sudden you're a post high school?" I was like, "I studied 5 years in the hole. I studied. That's all I did." And they gave me a second test, but this time they had the guard sitting next to me, and they had a teacher, facilitator sitting next to me, and they watched
Hmm.
me. And the test, which was a little more challenging, I scored even higher.
Wow.
And so now they're like, well, you don't need to go and for to test for a GED or HSED. You can just go straight to college. So I ended up getting an HSED. I went to college. I got an associate's. I got a theology degree and a culinary arts degree, with a couple other things. And so once I started feeling good about my purpose and really, really aligning myself, I was like, okay, there's work to be done, because this is a field where this field is nothing but pain and confusion. And most of the guys that are incarcerated, they've been told one time or another, you'll never amount to anything. You're going to end up dying or going to prison. So they was living out that that self-fulfilled prophecy that somebody else has spoken over their life. So my revelation was is that I had to undo those spoken words that devastated them to get them to the point where they understand that are a great man. You are a great king. So once I created these groups called the Circle Recovery and Christian Accountability, we started coming in there. The community started coming in, and so finally somebody had developed some type of notice. But it's like, what? Why are you in prison, Alphonso? And I told him I didn't do it, but there's work to be done here right now. And so they started taking notice. They started bringing the community in. They started bringing. They got in contact with the Wisconsin Innocence Project, and so lo and behold, I started having a relation with them, and they started investigating the case. Milwaukee went as far as said, "Well, we have no records of him in prison for that murder." And I was like, "But I'm here though. How could you not have any records?" So I had to go through probably a decade of just being denied that I am in prison for that murder. So we eventually got fed up with the court system, so we went through the parole system. We submitted all these documents to the parole system. So finally, the parole system's like, no, we got to let this guy out. And so on February the 14th of 2017, I was released on parole, meaning that I still have to be accountable to somebody. Yeah, to check in. So the first time I went to check in, the PO told me, "Alphonso, we have no idea why. Why are you coming to see us? You have your actions, your attitude, it doesn't line up with who they say you are on record." So they told me not to come back there no more. Parole told me not to come back. My agent was like, keep on doing you. And so that pretty much gave me the permission, because I knew that there was issues in our system, and there was issues that was involved in prison. So I knew that one way or another, I was called to be a voice for one of those things, if not all of them. And so now the POs call me, and they probably have a guy that's looking for a job, or have a guy that needs some counseling. So I'm the person that they call, and I sit down and counsel these very people. So now that I'm out, me and my partner, we solved the case. In 4 months, we solved the case. We get out, we went to Kansas. We met one of the witnesses, and they told us the truth about what happened. They came back to Milwaukee, and they introduced us to other people who sat on the witness stand and said I was the one. Today, they are my biggest supporters. The judge who sentenced me, I sat in front of him and said, "Judge, I love you more than anything in this world. Whatever you ask me, I'm going to do. I don't hold no animosity, no bitter, no whatsoever." And so he called me to speak to young kids. So these are the things that I had to go through in order to develop the character that I have today. Because at the end of the day, it's all about integrity. What do you do behind closed doors is the most important thing. How you love people is the most important thing. But you can't do that if you haven't forgiven them. You have to forgive them with your whole heart and your soul. And if you don't do that, you're going to continue to, every time that person come around you, something is going to rouse in you, and you're going to have this distaste in your mouth about this person. I didn't want that. I wanted to be genuine, because I wanted to give back to my community. And to go back to the community and hold on to anything, people see that. So I told them, when you see me, when I get out of prison, when you see me, I'm not going to be that person.
But you've ended up serving 32 and a half years for a crime that you didn't commit.
Yes.
And you know when you did 5 years in the hold, and you're doing all this reading and personal development, and you're listening to the chaplain, are you thinking during this period, I know I'm going to get out and I want to better myself? I mean, did you always know that you were going to get out, or was he?
Yes.
Yes.
James, for 32 years, my friend, when I first entered into Green Bay Correctional, I knew I didn't supposed to be there. I'm thinking that any day now, somebody is going to come knock at my cell door and say, "Okay, it was a joke. A mistake was made. Now we correct it." So I would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock. I would fold my linen, the institution clothes. I would fold my mattress, and I would sit on the edge of my bed, and I would sit there in preparation of knowing that I'm going to be released from this. So the guards used to come by, and it's like, "Alphonso, what are you doing? Why are your property packed up?" I said, "Because I'm going home." do you realize you're a lifer, right? And so they used to threaten me. They'll lock my cell door, even double lock it or whatever. I was like, no, I'm not escaping. You guys are gonna release me because I already know. I already know. And nobody believed me. Nobody believed me. I had to, like, every day when I wake up, if I have to remind myself that he that is perfect is perfecting perfection in my life. I knew that there was going to be some trials. I knew there was going to be some bumps in the roads, but I knew that everything that I was experiencing was perfecting my faith. It was perfecting my love, and it was perfecting my relationship with God. And so those are the things that I held on to for the whole entire incarceration. I held on to love, I held on to faith, and I held on to forgiveness. Those was the most important components that I knew that I needed in order to be any type of success in life.
You know, I mean, I still to this day, I don't know how you can do that, or anybody can do that. Change the way, you know, in you know the worst situation in the world can have probably one of the purest mindsets. So when you mentioned, we talked before about faith and then spirituality. Did that was that the chaplain that helped with that, or was it whilst you was inside um solitary confinement, or is it after? I mean, when do you think that kind of like the light bulb came on and you kind of like the anger and the resentment stopped initially, like when you was peeing into the
Mm.
milk carton? When did that stop to, okay, actually a light bulb moment has come on and now I am viewing things differently, I'm acting differently, my mindset is different. Like when was that and what happened?
Uh, I didn't, growing up, I didn't have a relationship with my father. I didn't know any of my father relatives, whatever, because I was born in Mississippi, but we came to Wisconsin when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And so he never been a part of my life. So I didn't really have any type of information about it. But later on, people started telling me, it was like, man, you have a preaching spirit. You have a loving spirit. Where did you get that from? But on my mother's side of the family, we didn't have anybody like that with those type of character traits. And so when we went to go investigate the case, we went to Mississippi. So I went down there to confront my past, meaning that I wanted to know my roots. And so I went to my father and I talked to him. I asked him questions about his father and his mother, and he told me his father was a pastor, So now it
Okay.
started making sense why all of a sudden I have such passion, because my grandfather was what? And now it's like, now it all begins to make sense. It all begins to make sense about how the language of love, the language of faith, it comes flowing so easy because I'm so, it's it's one place that
It's
I
in your
love to
blood, it's
read.
in your
It's in the blood. It's in, and I didn't
yeah.
know, because I've always felt like I was different. And James, the weird thing about it is too, probably a month or so before I was locked up, I had this awful dream. Um, I was laying on my mother's couch, and my mother, the way the house was, my mother's bedroom was right near the living room. So when I was home, she always had her door open because she always would come in the living room where I slept on the couch. Because I have 4 siblings, but it was always a small house, so I was either given the floor or a couch, and my
Hmm.
sister's the bedroom. So I'm laying on the couch, and my mother would, every time I sleep on the couch, she would come, she would just touch me and just tell me she loved me, or she'd just touch me on my forehead and go back to her room. But this particular time, she came and woke me up, and she was like, "You was jumping in your sleep." I was like, "Really?" And and after she talked to me, that probably a day or so later, I reminisce on that, and I was like, "Wow." I was in a dungeon. I was like, Mom, I went to a place that was so dark, and it seemed like I was familiar with that, but I didn't want to be there. 2 months later, when I was locked up, I entered into a place that it seemed like I was there before. The noise in prison, the loud music, the guards yelling, the people fighting. I had been there before, and I was like, oh my God, it was like I was given a warning before this had even happened. And then while I was in there, it was like I began to fulfill my obligations that I was created for. because
Hmm.
I had been running for so many years. I knew what I was supposed to be doing early on because I've always felt different. I've always felt more comfortable in the church or more comfortable doing community work or community activity. But I had swayed away from those things, and I don't understand why I did. And so that's why now that I look back, each one of those components in my life was stages that would grow me up. Because at that time I didn't have anything useful to say other than I'm hurt. But now it's like God began to perfect something in me. Now when the words come out, it's filled with passion. It's filled with all these things that I'm trying to get out, get the message out. And that's the thing. There's guys I go to prison 3 times a week to visit men. And just to sit there and to hug them and to tell them that you love them and that it's safe for them to come home and be with their family. You're releasing them emotionally, psychologically, and letting them know you are more than what this number says you are. You are a family man. You are a leader of your home.
Yeah.
And we're here to help you, show you how to establish those things through baby steps.
Which is, yeah, I mean, which is not, I mean, it's one thing sitting in the room and having a chat with you, but then, in prison, there's a lot of violence that
Yeah.
happens, and there's a lot of, not nice activity at all. So for
Mm.
them to then you try and have this purity, then to go back and be surrounded
Mm.
by that is difficult for them to, maintain that level of
Mm.
of
Yeah.
thought. It's easier said than done. Um, you mentioned before about the parole. So obviously you was 21 years that you were keep back up in front of the parole board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just for anyone listening, the parole board is kind of when they ask you to um for forgiveness, and if you are um resentment for what you've
Mm.
done, and if there is anything that you want to share about the crime, but you have to, for you to get out on an early parole board, you have to admit the crime, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to accept that what you've done is wrong, and ask for forgiveness and show resentment and how you're going to change and go back into society, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think that's where the challenge is, because it was like they always dangled a carrot in front of me. Even before I received the life sentence, they came to me with 10 years. No, no, no. And it,
Well, if you
every,
if you'd plead guilty, so during the
yeah,
trial, they said, okay,
yeah,
plead guilty now, and you just get 10, and maybe good
yes,
behavior, maybe out in 5 or 6 or something, and you said
yes,
no,
no,
and then you
no,
get life.
yes. And then I started going to the parole board. The first time I went to the parole board, I had to serve 13 years, 4 months. And every time after that 13, the first time I went to the parole board, they gave me a 48-month defer, which means that I can't go in front of them for 4 years based on my rejecting any involvement in it. So when the 4 years was up, they gave me another 4 years. Excuse me. So that was 8 years total. So when that 8 years was up, they gave me a 36-month defer. And it was like they was penalizing me, but I was like, okay, I'm cool with it. I'm good with it because I know what my truth is. And I know in time, the same people who have rejected me all of those years, finally, it's in my life, Alphonso, we are so sorry. No, there is work for us to be done. Our testimonies need to be shared because you felt that your truth was your truth at the time, and my truth was my truth. And we collided. Sometimes we don't look at things as though they really are, but we just go with what other people say. And so now to be able to
Yeah,
sit in front of them and say, okay, let's work together now. Let's with the rest of our lives, let's just make good. Let's create a legacy, something that's so great that the harm, the pain, or whatever of yesterday can be removed by the goodness of what we do today. And so that's why I've been working hand in hand with the penal system, with the juvenile system, with the community, and with church leaders, so we can get that message of healing out. And I share with people, I was like, if I can do this, I the dark parts, I don't share that. The the beatings, the stabbings, the loneliness, the dying of your family members. You can't go to their funeral. I don't share the dark side of things because that is something I cling to. That is something that is so personal to me. But what I do share is I share the goodness of who you are, of what we're able to become. It doesn't matter what your circumstances, it does matter. I'm not trying to minimize anything like that because each person walk is for them. And I just believe I had hope. I knew that I knew that I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I knew there was going to come a time when they look me in my eyes and they tell me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I knew that I had to put on the cloth of forgiveness before I was released. That was contingent on who I was to become. And I had to do that.
Who did you want to say sorry? Who did you want the person that says sorry to you? Who was that?
Um, Actually, it was five of them. It was the judge, it was the DA,
Okay.
and it was the witnesses. So yeah, and I was able to say, and they was like, and to this day, they was like, "You really not mad? Why? Why? That's a waste of energy. It takes it takes less muscles in your face to smile than to sit
Yeah.
there and have a frown. No, no. My jaws get my cheeks get so tired because people need to see that. They need to see the love. They need to see. I want people to when they first meet me, they was like, it's like, oh, he's a good guy. But then they sit down with me and they talk to me. They was like, we never would have known you was locked up, And I was like, I know. That's why I'm willing to share my testimony. It's powerful. It's good. It's enlightening. Ain't nothing sad about it. I don't try to draw sadness. I try to bring in love. And if you give me sadness, I'm going to take that in. I'm going to convert it into something. And when I give it back to you, you're going to know you've been in the presence of somebody that went through something.
Did the five people, did they apologize?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
was that one
And
of
I
the
love them.
things that was that one of the things that was keeping you going and driving you because you could visualize them because you knew you didn't do anything wrong and you was visualizing them five people that you contributed to putting you away that they at some point were going to have to say sorry.
Yes. I saw this, but I was prepared. If I didn't receive an apology, I was prepared. Okay, but I was going to still be an effective person. I still wanted to like I just exist. I just wanted to be a space in people's life where they knew, okay, mistakes happens, but how do you convert those mistakes into something positive?
Yeah.
Everyone that experiences. When I went to New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, and I was honored to be able to speak for 15 minutes at it was 15, 16, it was 1,700 people there. It was 400 on
Amazing.
stage with me that had been freed or exonerated within the last year. And then you had 600 in the audience within the last 2 years have been exonerated. But then you have thousands of them that's still on the waiting list for the Innocence Project to be able to pick up their case. So the numbers are alarming. So for them to select me to be the keynote speaker, and I spoke, and it was like, now finally, I dreamed of this 40 years ago. James, I even went as far as because I journaled. I journaled pretty much to speak to the inner child within me. So when I started doing it, it just so happens years later, people read it and it's like, this is a book. This is some deep stuff. I was like, I didn't write it for that reason, but I wrote it for
Yeah.
me. And so now I think we're going to get to that point where we begin to publish them.
Yeah, which you absolutely should. I mean, the some of the key learnings in that, not just, that for us to understand what you've experienced, but also to help people that are going through something, similar, um, and to help them get through it. So what was there ever a time that you went before the pro board and you thought, you know what, I'm going back in front of the pro board that declined me the last, 2, 3 times. I've now got another 7, 8, 9 years. If I just say, yes, I accept it and I come up with a story, I could be released straight away. Was there ever a time where you thought that?
Never. Never, never.
Wow.
As bad as I wanted to go home, my friend, never crossed my mind. And I hated being in that place. But I wasn't going to get out on a lie. I was going to get out on the truth. And so and that was it. But I don't know. I can't really explain to you how, but I always knew that I would be released. Can't tell you how. And I saw myself standing on a platform where I was opening my mouth and speaking to large crowds of people. In fact, December the 31st last year, I was given a dream. And I was given this dream where my mouth was gagged, my hands was bound behind my back, and my feet was bound. And I was laying on my side, but I was around a massive body of water. So I didn't understand it. So it was like my soul was removed from my body, and I was able to look down at my body as I laid on the shore, facing the shore, bound and gagged, and didn't understand why. But I saw the struggle of me trying to talk, and I couldn't. And all of a sudden, I woke up, and it's like my soul went back into my body. And I told my partner, I was like, I just had this crazy dream. I got to go by the lake. So I drove by the lake, 6 o'clock in the morning, chilly. And I stood there, and it was like, this is the place I'm supposed to be. So once I got out of and it was snowing, I got out of my car, I looked at the lake, I looked at the heaven, and that's when I began to hear. It was like, as though me and you sitting and talking. It was like a voice like that was saying, now I removed the gag from your mouth. Now you have something to say. I took the ropes from your hand and unbound you and from your hand and your feet. Now you can be able to stand on stages and be able to share your story to a lot of people. There's healing. I had this dream. Oh my goodness. I saw it. And now that I had that dream, I came home with a whole new different insight where I was like, baby, we may not can save the world, but we can save this block. We may not can be whatever everybody wants us to be, but we can be the best version of us. People need to hear this. Not only hear, we've been hearing stuff for the longest, but nothing ever comes of it. To be able to walk down the street, to see trash in front of an elderly lady house, or see her struggling with something, to be able to go out there and cut her grass, to see young people walk down the streets and to be able to make them laugh and not think that this stranger is a weirdo. So now that's how I invite people into my space where we creating. It's a place that right before I was incarcerated, it was a young it was like a community center, and it's still there. The building is still there on the block, and I see thousands of kids walk past this place and have no idea of the visionaries who created that space. And so now I spoke with a couple of people, and they said they'll be happy to investigate it and to see if I can buy it. I want to create this space so it'll be open door policy. Come on, community, let's go get healed. Let's heal. We have everything that we need. We have everything. Yeah. The only thing we have to do is just speak it.
That's beautiful. And how was things? So you was close with your mum before you got the trial and got convicted, right? How was that? So she didn't know. Was she informed that you were 5 years in incarceration, in lockup or in solitary confinement?
She came. My family used to come. Green Bay, the prison was probably like 3 hours away from my home, and then at that time, my mother didn't drive or had the finance. So whenever she was able to come, which was like twice a year, she came and she saw me in a hole with the shackles and the orange jumpsuit, and I saw her break down, and she didn't want to come up there. So I needed her in my life. I needed my hug. So that's one of the reasons too why I decided that I'm not gonna get in trouble, because I'm not gonna lose the risk of not seeing my mother for years and years. So for the first 5 years, she didn't know. She saw me there one time, and then she didn't come anymore until I was
But they
out.
told her that you was okay. I mean, that they informed her that you were okay and that you're alive and you're well. Or
no. Yes. Only the chaplain he continued to visit me even after that. And so every now and then, probably like once a month, he would call my mother and just let him know I was okay. and that
Okay.
sort of thing. And then he would show me how to write a letter. So yeah,
He taught you.
I am so close to my mother. My mother is like, she's like, she believed in me. Oh my goodness. I know a lot of people may say this, but she she gave me breath when I didn't have it. She gave me breath when I didn't have it. Yeah.
And that light, that encouragement to just keep going.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
And
know
I was like,
before, so before we kicked off, we were talking about how you don't have any resentment and how you started off with faith and then you went to spirituality. And I shared with you that I see and I feel that there's so much hatred and jealousy and resentment and self-entitlement in the world today, which causes, the knock-on effect of that causes crimes and issues and violence. How, your story is probably one of the most traumatic and injustice stories that I've ever heard or come across. How do you, to this day, or even through the period, not have that resentment? And you talk a lot about the forgiveness. How do you have that in your mind, and how have you built that and
mm.
able to live and breathe that?
It's you got to get it out your head. You got to get it out your head, first of all. But I think that to me, it's a soul thing. It's something that's when your soul is alive, it has nothing to do with your thought, because our thoughts is the thing that always remind us of our failures. But our
Mm-hmm.
soul is the thing that causes you to elevate to heights unknown to you. It challenges you, it pushes you, it allows you to do things that you would never imagine in a million years. I never imagined in a million years, first of all, being in prison for that long. And I definitely didn't imagine that I have to, a part of my growth process would be to forgive. And not only to forgive, but to love them, to be willing to give them the clothing off my back if they ask for it. So once I realized that, oh my God, I got this kind of love in me, I want to be used. I want to be used any way that can better my surroundings, that can better me. And I knew that I had to return back to my family because, again, we came up from the South early on, and so they still live those same habits while up here in the States. And so when I came back into my family's life, they were still as though they was in 85. We had not bridged that gap. And so I had to figure out a way where I can bring my family together in some healing. And so I started talking to them. I started being Alphonso, not the little kid anymore, moms, but the man Alphonso, the man that is filled with life. I want to share this life with you. And so there's a lot of healing moments. There was a lot of moments where we shook our fists at each other. We shook our fists at God because we didn't understand why. I shook my fist at my mother because I was like, you gave me into the hands of them. So it was like forgiveness had to take place because I was hurt by so many people for so long. And that was like an anger to my soul. And I couldn't do anything with those things. So once I released those people in my life, I was able to love them in ways and pray for them and pray God's safety that when that time comes and we meet each other, oh my goodness, it's just going to be a powerful, powerful thing. And I had a chance to take my mother to New Orleans. This is the first time she heard me speak. And when she heard me speak, I looked at my mother and it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear like, oh my God, I didn't know my son went through that.
Yeah, that must have been a proud moment for you both.
I'm gonna let the dog out for a second. Excuse me for a
No,
second.
no, but yeah, no, sure.
All right. Sorry, James.
No problem. So I want to, if I can, just try and understand that a little bit more. So, because do you think it's something that it was, like you said, in your blood and something that you're born with, or is it a skill that you had to develop and work on, like a muscle? You needed to work at it, you needed to develop it.
Both, yes, both. Definitely a muscle.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, that's pretty much with anything in life is if you're trying to perfect something, it's going to take practice. It's going to. I remember
Sure.
there was time I used to pray for peace, and then I would come out of my cell, and someone would try to swing at me, or you go in the chow hall area, and all of a sudden it's a riot, and I was like, God, I'm praying for peace, but all hell is being loosed around me. The peace I was praying for was the peace within. So even though those guys was rioting, those guys were fighting, I was in my cell committed, committed to excellence, not garbage. Because I knew eventually there was going to come a time I came across thousands and thousands of people incarcerated. And I knew that when that time came for me to be released, and if I wasn't a stand-up person who believed in faith and stood on integrity while I was in prison, there is no way in this world that my testimony would mean anything to those guys. You know, so now
Yeah.
it was so important that I be me around them. Not when nobody is looking, but yeah, I want to be me around them. So now that we're all on the, or some of us is on the streets, the first thing they say, man, Alfonso, yeah, he really didn't do that stuff, but you could never tell. He was always smiling. That's what I thought I was supposed to
And
do.
it's the same person throughout. Like you
Yeah,
say, it's the work you do when people are not watching, right?
yeah,
It
yeah,
anyone can look, busy or look like a great individual or person in front of others, but it's what you're doing when no one's watching and the work that you put
yes,
in.
yes, yes. That's the key. One of the keys.
But do you think it's certain steps though? Because let's say that you have this anger. Obviously, you went through the anger part, right? Which is why you were peeing in the milk carton. Um, so the person that's got the resentment or the anger or the fire in the middle, they see red. I guess they can't stop that from coming up, but it's how they respond to it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how, I mean, what do you think is the step? Like let's say someone is going along a journey and they're listening to this and they want to try and rehabilitate or they want to try and work on their own mental capacity, on their own mindset in becoming better within, becoming
Mm-hmm.
calmer, having more peace, having more forgiveness. What are the things that they can do? I mean, that you said it's well, you tell you explain things that you've gone through and what the processes or the thoughts.
Mm. Well, actually, the first thing is that anything that is worthwhile, it takes work. It don't happen day one. It don't happen day two. You may have a rare case where things happen overnight, and a person just received that breakthrough in their life. But for those of us who have to work a little harder, um, it's all about being consistent. You have to be consistent in your actions. But I think that where it started with me was it started within. The
Hmm.
person that I really didn't want to face was me. There was times I stole $1 from my mother and went to the store and bought candy and then lied and said I didn't do it while I had a mouthful of candy. It's the times where my sister probably got on my nerves when we was kids and I pushed her. You know, it's incidents like that always put things in perspective because it's easy to go back to what you know, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
challenge to really walk that course. So to make a long story short, you have to start from yourself, but you have to ask yourself the hard question, and you have to be real. And a lot of things that you're going to discover about yourself, you're not going to like. But a lot more things you're going to love about yourself because you're driven to become better. So it's the conversation piece that you got to always have with yourself on a regular basis. If your significant other frustrates you, come on, come on, come on, come on, you know, and just doing whatever. When the whole world is around you, it seems like it's in total chaos. What do? Do you follow with the crowd, or do you enter into yourself and quiet yourself from all the ruins that's going on around you? So somebody have to be in a sensible state at all times. Not saying that any of us are perfect, but the thing about it is once you discover you, you think you love you now. But when you love the soul of you and you understand the essence of you, then you're not going to want to hurt nobody. You're not going to want to disappoint nobody. The only thing you want to do is love and give. That's all, because you want the best for everybody. But everybody don't want the best for themselves. So you got to figure out how to filter those things between the two. But I think the deepest thing is that you have to come to an end of yourself to discover you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just hearing you say that, I mean, there's so much. I think it obviously comes very natural to you as well, which I think is probably this spiritual grandfather of yours and coming through. Yeah. I mean, just listening to you in the story, I honestly don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm a very level-headed and calm person, but I don't think I've got it in me to do what you've done.
You'll be surprised, my friend. You'll be surprised.
Some people say that the darker the days, or the harder an event, the more the learning, the more that comes out of it. Is that something that you believe in?
Yes, yes. Because I've always felt it's just like, it reminds me of the diamond, the coal before it's the diamond, the pressure it has to go through in order to bring out the beauty, the strength of the diamond. And that's what life challenges is. It squeezes you a little bit, but it also it removes the dross and it brings out the beauty of that diamond. And once you see the beauty of that diamond, oh my goodness, everywhere you go, people is going to be looking. And so that's what I do, James. Like, it's a motto I have. Because a lot of people, whenever I walk down the street or walk in the grocery store, I always tell myself, the first person who make a 1 second eye contact with me, we're going to talk. So I was walking one day. I never fished a day in my life. I was walking on a bridge. It was just a peaceful, beautiful day last year. And I saw this couple. It was a person on the upper bridge, and his wife was on the lower. And so he was fishing from the top. And I was like, oh man, that looked cool. That's nice. He said, really? Have you ever fished before? I said, no, sir. I never fished before. And so he made that eye contact with me. He said, why haven't you fished before? That was my cue. So I had a chance to share with him what I had gone through. And him and I stood up there for seconds. He forgot about his fish. He forgot whatever he was doing. We embraced a complete stranger. We embraced. And he called down, hey, honey, this guy never fished before. Show him how to fish. So I go down there. They give me I'm right-handed. They give me a left-hand fishing rod. So instead of me doing that, the whole thing went in the water. But I jumped in the water. I got my the fishing stick out. And the guy upstairs, he said, you weren't supposed to do that. I was like, nobody told me. But the long story short is that at the end of that 5-minute adventure, I left feeling I really met two friends. And I've been in contact with them ever since that incident. And now when I go speak to different places, we share that story. And it was just random strangers who just so happened to look at me. And for 1 second, and all of a sudden, we enter into a lifelong relationship where we're partners to be able to go into different places and share the story. So that's how random a lot of things is. You just have to have an expectant heart, a loving heart, a heart that, okay, even though the world says don't, no, because that one person that you just walked past, could be moments or seconds away from taking their very life. So that one word that you speak to that person can be that word that give them life. So I'm always aware of that because I know what depression is. Depression runs rapids in my family. Anxiety. I know what all those things is. I know how debilitating it is. I know how crippling it is. As soon as I see it, I identify it and I call it out. I call it out right there. And so that's what my adventure, just walking through, I'm Milwaukee in other states. Whenever I walk across past a stranger or whatever, I got to give love on them. I have to. It's mandatory for me to do that. They don't have to reciprocate it. I don't care. I'm just called to do what I'm supposed to do. And I know that somewhere down the line, there's going to be a conversation piece where they say, I remember I went fishing and this stranger just, it's a conversation piece. And it begins to spread. When we don't hear much of that anymore, other than I don't like that person or this person, or no, it's not about that. It's about being you, being an authentic you.
And sharing, I mean, I believe that you can share and transfer energy. And so
Yes.
you're in the communication, you're transferring that positive energy to others.
Yes. 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 I absolutely believe that 1000%. Yeah. That goes a long
But yeah,
way.
I do believe that the more difficult an event or the harder you fall, the more learning that you can develop as a result of that. And I remember when we first spoke, I asked you the question that knowing what you know now and the gift that you have for the rest of your life and how you can impact many people's lives and families' lives positively, would you go through it all again?
Yes.
And you said yes.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yes.
you wouldn't be the person you are now today
No.
if you didn't hit rock bottom and go through all of that.
James, I came across a lot of friends, guys I went to grade school with, guys I used to hang out with. When I got out, it's like they age like 30, 40 years. Life had beat them down to the point where it's like they really don't have no idea who they are. So I could have been involved in that same trap out here. I could have been, I don't know. I just hate to think how it could have been, or I could have won $1 billion lottery, or I could have been this successful person. So it's hard to decipher, what would have happened. But my odds is going with, because I was somewhat of a follower at that time, I would have went with the crowd. I was comfortable with the crowd because I didn't need to be seen. So now that I look back, it's like, wow, that 32 years, it was an absolute blessing. I was comforted in that 32 years. I was loved in that 32 years. I was supported in that 32 years. I was educated in that 32 years. I was humbled. So I got a whole laundry list of other things. But then on this side of it, it's like falsely accused. Okay, no, we're going to move that away for a while too, because no, I never received that falsely accused thing. I've always walked in a person as though he didn't belong there. I'm telling you, every day, in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I have my linen folded, ready to go for somebody to tell me that they made a mistake. And when that didn't happen, I said, okay, this is a mission field. I have to go out here. There's guys who need their GEDs or HACDs. There's guys that just need to be talked to. And mental health is so rapid in prison. Medication it's all over the place. They just give them my hands full of this stuff. Yeah.
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 I mean, not just in prison. I think out in every single country, it's just given like it's water.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the only solution. Which, yeah.
Yeah.
And Alfonso, as of today, do you still have events in your life which frustrate you or makes you angry, or frustrated? I mean, as a human being, I mean, do you experience these still?
Yeah. July 27th. July 27th is the day I got locked up. September the 18th, it's when I was waived into adult court. And then February the 14th is when I was sent to prison. And guess what day
And
I got out?
not the same day.
February the 14th.
but
Yeah,
2017.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that those days is when I first got out, it was challenging. No, even while I was locked up, it was challenging because it was like that was my last taste of freedom. That was my last taste of my mother's cook when she brought me bacon and eggs to the port. That was the last hug I had. That was the last time I called my sister, Big Head, wake up. That was the last time I held on to my daughter. You know, that was the last time I was really on cloud nine because I'm about to go break dance. So yeah, every now and then, those days, when it comes, it's like, oh my God. It now it's pretty much of a reflection now. It's like, wow, wow. And I just move on from that. I don't allow myself to stay in that place very long. It's not nice there. It's so not me. And once I find myself getting upset or angry about something, I call me out. I'm the first to call me out because I know better. I know what's at stake. I know the value of being alive and being free and liberated. It's important. There is nothing in this world that can take me from where I'm at right now. It's it's hard to put into words, but I know that this season of my on this earth is for a reason. It's for a reason. And I'm enjoying that reason right now. It hurts because some people slap your hand, some people try to manipulate you, some people try to take advantage or whatever. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Mm.
I'm okay because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. What they do with
Mm.
it, so
That's up to
and
them.
I'm super okay. Yeah.
So tell me about the charity then and the impact that you're trying to create, because you've got a charity which is called Unfragile, and that's helping innocent people that are currently locked up, but also innocent people which have been released from jail, and you're helping them get back into society with jobs and families and things. So tell me about that.
Unfragile. Oh my goodness. I was given somebody, I was in a casual conversation with somebody, and it was like, Alfonso, you are unfragile. And I never heard that word before. So I looked it up, I researched it, and I was like, wow, powerful, unfragile, strong, not yielding, endured. And so I was like, wow, that embodies what I believe in and healing. And so there's a place where I grew up in when I was a kid, CYD in Milwaukee. It was pretty much for the whole community. There was hot meal programs. There was places where young teenage kids can go just hang out and be safe. And there was counselors. There was always, on ground that they can talk to at any given time. There was field trips that they would take with the kids because their parents couldn't afford it. So that same building when I was a kid is now available. So I was looking at this and I was like, oh my God, the incredible opportunity it would be to be able to give back to the community, but also show my face. And then we went to New Orleans, and there was a couple of people who want to start up a healing retreat here in Wisconsin. And I went to go visit the place, and it is so gorgeous. And I'm like, God, I don't know how I'm gonna get this, but I'm gonna get it. And it can help so many people. It can, and so that's where we are at now. We're like at the early stages of everything, where we're just doing research and making sure that everything lined up. So yeah, I think Unfragile, and then we have another one that's coming up. It's called The Journey Within, and this is at the same location that I'm talking about. I don't know, James. I don't know how, but I believe it. I believe it, that this same location is that you can you can take like inner city kids that never experienced like the lake in this natural beauty, where there's trees and where there's safety, no police siren. So, and it's 32 acres. And the guy, as soon as the guy heard that I was locked up 32 years, he said, I got 32 acres. You got to come take a look at it. So, and when I
Yeah.
saw it, it is so, so, so beautiful. I went around this compound. I was like, man, I'm praying for everything. And so, yeah, that's what we're in the process of doing. We're still in the early stages. We're trying to build up whatever funds that we possibly can to get those type of things done.
How much do you need? How much funds do you need to make this happen?
125, 125. So
What
that
to buy the building?
yes, the one that's in the community that I'm in. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then for the project that you want to do on the land, is that like
Five.
a collaboration with him, or are
Yes,
you thinking about buying the land?
yes. I'm thinking about buying it. The only thing the owner, because it's been in his family, he said almost 200 years. He said the only thing he wants to be able to do because he had a aquaponic farm on the land, and he said he would just like to continue to take care of that. But there's like there's four cottages, um, and each one of them got four four bedrooms in there. And then we have it's like a farm that's now made out of like a conference hall. So I was thinking about like for the Innocence Project, like guys when they're released from prison, that'd be an ideal place for them to go with their families and just get away from the life until and just allow them to ease back into it. So with that, we'll help them with the resume. We'll help them with resumes. We'll help them with getting their license. A lot of counseling, a lot of counseling will be taking place there too, but a lot of healing. So I just want to make a space, and 32 acres would be really, really great to be able to supply those type of things for them.
And how much do you need for that project?
Bigger than what I can say. Well, he got it on the market for 5 million.
Okay,
So
okay. But the first one is 125
yes,
for the building. Okay.
yeah. And then we're gonna set up. It's a couple guys who was released from prison that's our handyman. They're familiar with the plumbing, so they're gonna do that free. So the only thing we're gonna provide for them is just a shelter. They need a place to go to live and food, and then just put some money in their pockets and make sure they're good. So we're gonna have them go in there and take a look at it if we need to gut anything, make it better or whatever. So and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm telling you, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I have no doubt at all that you're going to do this, and you'll do far, far more than this. This will be just the start of your beautiful journey. But um, it's. I don't think it's going to be just the innocent people that you're going to impact. It's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
the world, because what you have to share is incredible, and there's so much learning for all of us that every single one of us can take away the purity of your mind and the experience that you've been through and how you process and how you're able to kind of center yourself. If we all had a small percentage of that in us, the world for sure would be a much, much better place.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed.
But you have you it's great that you're doing this with me, and I know that you're wanting to, look at putting some books out there, and I'm for sure you'll be on other podcasts and stage, and the more that you can voice this, the better, the more people that you'll impact and help.
Thank you. Thank you, James. I
But
don't.
but
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying not
no,
to
no,
lose it here.
thank
So
you. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know. I mean, I don't think you're human. I don't know how you can go. I couldn't go through what you've been through. Um, I don't think there's many people that could, and still, and one thing surviving, but another thing coming out and
mm,
having the purity of your mind, and then the other thing is actually then wanting to give back and help and make a difference,
mm,
and just stay true to yourself, true to your thoughts, true to the person that you are, um, is incredible. And I don't know anybody else like you. So thank you for being you, for sharing your story, for allowing people to listen to the difficulty that you've had to go through, but to enable the opportunity to share it and help others. and you're one of the rare people that has a beautiful soul. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you, James.
And then anything that I can do, I'll be more than happy to help and share your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you more than you know. Yeah, thank you.